1230 The Buzz, your talk station.
Running and running and running and running and running.
Friends, fellow Cincinnatians, listeners around the world, welcome to Talk of the Town with PG Sittenfeld. I am your host, PG Sittenfeld. So glad you are joining us this morning and spending part of your Saturday with us. I am your Cincinnati City Councilman, but for the next hour, I'm just here to be part of the conversation. We have a great show for you today. As always, I'm joined in studio by my co-pilot, Tamaya Denard. How you doing, Tamaya?
I am great. How are you?
I'm good. Are you feeling polite and civil today?
I am, and I'm incredibly excited about the brain power in this room.
That's right. We will introduce the mighty brain power and dynamic panel we have in studio with us today. But I asked Tamaya if she's feeling polite because civility is very much on our minds today. But first, we of course want to thank and give a shout out to our sponsor, Celebrities, at 7617 Reading Road in Roselawn, who help make the show possible. Get out there, have yourself a good time. You might see me there on an occasional evening. So obviously the elections are just around the corner, which also means that we are deep into the season of divisiveness, of negative ads, of negative tones, which I think makes this seem like an opportune time to take up the topic of civility. Is our political discourse getting more and more debased? Is there any turning back? Who's to blame, and what are the consequences when civility disappears from our discourse and specifically our political discourse? So, as Tamaya mentioned, we are delighted to be joined in studio today by a top-notch panel who is going to help us weigh in on this topic. We have with us former Cincinnati City Councilman, Mayor, and Congressman David Mann. We have Bishop Michael Dantley, pastor at Christ Emmanuel Church in Walnut Hills. We have Xavier University professor and director of government relations, Jean Beaupre, and we have the editor of the Cincinnati Enquirer's opinion page, Dave Holthouse. Thank you all so much for being with us this morning.
Glad to.
Glad you're here, and because we've got a full house in studio and because we caught up with our panel a little bit earlier, unlike most shows when we ask you all to light up the phone lines, we'll not be able to take your calls today, but please keep listening because you do not want to miss this conversation. So let us now start the conversation, and I guess, David, let me start with you. You've had an active run in politics. In terms of the civility of our discourse, particularly our political discourse, where are we today versus where we were 15 years ago and where we were 30 years ago when you were in council in the mayor's office in the United States Congress?
I was curious to know how far back you were going to go. At one point, I could cut it off. I think it's deteriorated, and exactly why, I don't know. I guess we can speculate. I think the 24/7 news cycle nationally, the competition amongst different kinds of media, newspapers, we know are changing dramatically, the internet, so many things mean that it may be harder to find a way to get some airtime, and the way to get airtime sometimes is to present things a little hotter, maybe a little more controversially than in the past.
Dave Holthouse, opinion page editor at the Enquirer. You obviously had a long career in journalism. Would you agree that civility is, on the decline, not on the rise in our political discourse?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I don't know what the cause is, but I think you can trace a lot of it to anger. There's been an anger in the population and in some of the legislatures, and I'm not really sure why that is, but that's definitely had an impact on how we're speaking to each other and how we're debating, how we're governing, and I think it's unfortunate.
Bishop Dantley, we'll see if this ends up being a clean sweep here. If anyone thinks that civility is not on the decline and sort of, harsher rhetoric, meaner rhetoric is on the rise, but what's your take on where we are today versus where we've been over the last several decades?
I'd have to agree that the rhetoric is much harsher. I believe, much like what David has already said, that harsh words and things that are going to be offensive tend to get more play, and people are more interested in hearing those kinds of things as opposed to conciliatory kinds of words. So, I do believe we're on the decline.
Professor Beaupre, let me ask you this. You've also, in addition to grooming and mentoring students over many years now, you have a long record in being involved in politics as well. Does the tone of our politics in some way sort of reflect where society is today, or is this not? Can we look at the attack ads or the tone in a presidential debate, say, that we're experiencing right now, and say, well, that's sort of what America is today and who we are and where we are, or is it another reality?
I think there's no question that it filters down into our daily lives and into the way we behave. Not necessarily that any of us go out and, figuratively speaking, pull the trigger every time, but it's just an option that people can employ. Whether it's road rage or being somebody cutting in front of you in line or whatever, that there just is not a sense of, I'll just say, a sense of value for the other people in the community. And that loss of sense of community, I would attribute it to a lot of other things as well. But I think if there's a fundamental thing that is missing, it's that we don't care and share things with each other anymore in the sense of community.
So I don't want to sort of force you to be psychologist here, too, in addition to political analyst. But, do you think there's a greater capacity for that it's more okay to be angry today, or it's more okay to be mean, or it's more okay to not keep a civil tone, that, that we're more accepting of that in a way?
I think that we're surprisingly amazed when we find somebody that really goes over the top, and does something that's violent and, totally out of control. But I think till people get to that point, I think there's a tendency just to say, that's the way people are now. And that's too bad. I think we don't employ, and I think Beyond Civility is one attempt in a very difficult arena to do it, to try and get back in touch with each other.
So Professor Beaupre has brought up the Beyond Civility initiative. David, can you speak to what that was and what some of the, insights were?
Well, it's ongoing, so I don't want to talk
Civility's
in the
not
past
rocket.
tense. No, but the Beyond Civility initiative, which really was the idea of B. Larson, a former chair of the Cincinnati Bar Association, and Bob Rack, the retired mediator for the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, who have a long history of work on. They brought to this community what's called collaborative law, which is a new way to do divorce matters, which is a very contentious area, of course, and with collaborators who are willing to do so, it has been very successful. They also have been a part of bringing mediation to the local bar, which is a way to resolve cases short of a trial, which many of us think is very effective, very helpful. So the question is, can some of those principles be brought to the public forum? We're not trying to address negative campaigns. That's the last place that we think it would be useful for us to try to do something. The question is in terms of public issues that the community is attempting to address, can we find a way better to talk to each other? And the proposition is, might it be in everybody's interest to talk differently about public issues? If I have strong feelings about something and you have strong feelings which are different, maybe if I listen to you, I can find some common ground instead of assuming that I disagree with everything you're about to say. And as you talk, I'm preparing my response. Right. And it's amazing if you actually listen, you can talk to each other and find some common ground. And we've been blessed with a number of people coming forward and being interested in participating. Lou Blessing, who has a long career in the State House, contacted us and said, Columbus is very different than it used to be. And we used to solve problems, and now we just, when it comes to legislating, are screaming at each other.
Well, and I think about your experience in Congress. You hear a lot of folks say that Republicans and Democrats, certainly they didn't used to necessarily agree, but they had lunch together, they had relationships with each other, they were friends with each other, and out of that can come more common ground. Bishop Danley, let me ask you a sort of similar question that David Mann just spoke to. I guess, why does civility matter, both in politics and outside of politics?
I think one of the reasons that it really does matter is that there's no sense of community without civility. Now, I do believe that there have to be opposite positions that people take, and that's fine, and that's a part of community. But if we are unable to really talk about those differences in a way where we're both listening to both sides of an issue, and we are committed to seeing the issue resolved because it's for the betterment of the community, then I think that civility is a piece that's missing, and missing tremendously. Not just in the political arena. I think that civility is missing, period, in the whole notion of being a community, of really listening and talking to one another with respect for one another.
Well, and a little bit later in the show, I sort of want to talk about civility in the pulpit and in the pews, and with Professor Beaupre, civility in the classroom. Dave, let me ask you this from your vantage point. What, again, sort of is our politics reflecting society? In terms of the media's role in all of this, and you can obviously speak to newspapers, Do you all think you the newspaper, what's your role? Is the media meant to just reflect the level of civility, reflect the discourse, or do you all have a role in shaping it as well?
Well, I think we have a big role in shaping it, and I think we also have a responsibility to be a model for discourse, and that's one of the things that we're trying to do on the opinion page in the Enquirer is promote civility, promote balanced discourse, promote moderation in our governing. But in some ways, we do have to reflect what's going on in society. So we do have to report on what's going on and what people are thinking, what people are saying. And in some ways, that magnifies that. And, when we speak of the media being somewhat at fault for this, I think we're talking mostly about
cable news,
some of the talk radio
sure.
and the cable news, newspapers to some degree, but I think newspapers are really, in a lot of ways, still models for, providing various views and providing different views with respect.
When I was sort of thinking about this in my head in advance, I do think newspapers do more strive to be that role of, reflecting what's going on, analyzing it. I think, I don't think Rush Limbaugh would deny for 2 seconds, whether people agree with him or disagree with him. I've heard him say it many times. I mean, I'm an entertainer, first and foremost. It's about driving ratings, getting those advertisings. I do want to ask you, we're going to take a break in just a minute here and pay some bills, but I do want to ask you when we come back, letters to the editor, how you decide when a tone might say, this actually, we can't print this in what is our hometown newspaper versus, all right, this person has a strong opinion. They've articulated it maybe in a sort of harsh way, but their opinion deserves the megaphone of the newspaper. So we'll talk about all of that and much more. We are discussing civility on Talk of the Town. I'm PG Sittenfeld, 1230 The Buzz. We'll be right back.